Art is awesome. Martial arts are awesome. Let's take a journey to where they both meet. Welcome to the Martial Artsy Podcast.
Hello, people out there. Welcome to the Martial Artsy Podcast. I am your host, Ray Kong Sarai, and this is the first installment of the Martial Artsy Podcast. What the hell is martial artsy, do you ask? Well, martial artsy happens at the nexus of martial arts and arts, I guess. That's kind of what it would be in a nutshell. I myself, first and foremost, I would say am an artist. I'm a graphic artist and a designer, and I do a little web stuff. Professionally, that's what I am. That's kind of what my background is for the most part. And unlike a lot of people, I've found my way into art secondary. I feel like a lot of people that are kind of into it know they're into it, and they start off in life and they just kind of like, man, that makes me feel a certain way, and then that's their vein, But from what I gather about art is that you can take something that might be common, like tons of people paint stuff. People paint houses, people paint cars, people paint bookshelves, people paint fingernails. But you can take something that has to happen, and through practice and repetition and just pouring your soul into something, you can do something that transcends what most people would consider to be like a normal thing, like a painted wall. All of a sudden, with a combination of emotion, becomes a painted mural or a painted piece of canvas that says a lot about the artist or generates a feeling that is deeper than just the combination of pigments and canvas that have been kind of laid out there. So yeah, art. If you didn't hear the intro, art is awesome. Okay? But what does that have to do with martial arts, I guess? So the nexus of martial arts and art, I would say, would have to be that to get good at martial arts. Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. Martial arts. What is martial arts? Martial arts, the art of warfare. Martial meaning warfare. Art is the artistic expression of that, the discipline of learning warfare. I mean, that's just kind of like my take on things. Martial art, it's a combination of things and can be expressed over many different disciplines within that martial art, or within that moniker, or within that overarching label of martial arts. There are many things inside of martial arts. There's many different things that could be considered martial arts. Wrestling could be considered a martial art. Boxing could be considered a martial art. Karate, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, judo, Many different things to be considered martial arts. And depending on how how liberal your definition of it is. I mean, I've seen guys that practice things such as like firearms usage with the same level of discipline that you might consider, someone, practicing a kata for karate, So martial arts, I think we all have an idea in our head of what martial arts is. But as I said before, one thing that I've noticed about guys that are artists is that guys that are artists practice. They may not always be prolific as, coming up with pieces and having things to show people, but martial artists, for the sake of, comparison, practice as well. So both artists and martial artists practice. And what's really, really awesome is when you see someone who's a martial artist who transcends just the physical applications of what it is that they're practicing and goes to another level, and they show you something, and in the same fashion that, say, someone can turn something so mundane as, pigment and canvas into a beautiful expression of emotion, they can really kind of show you something, a take on something, an execution of something so perfect and so beautiful that it's really, really undeniable, And it's honest that when you do art or when you do martial arts, it's like it when you see it. So a little bit about me as far as martial arts. I spent a little bit of time in my formative years getting punched in the face. Didn't really move out of the way a lot. So there's that. I fought professionally. I came up in the ranks, cut my teeth in Hawaii when I first moved to Hawaii. I first moved to Hawaii when I was 18 years old. And I had a very interesting kind of beginning, I guess. I started off doing jiu-jitsu. Actually, I didn't start doing jiu-jitsu. I literally started off getting punched in the face. So I don't know if anyone knows this, but here it goes. I guess it's a podcast. This is my riff, I guess. So I started off, right? 17 years old. Joined the U.S. Navy. Hoorah, Navy. Wanted to be a nuclear mechanic, and that didn't quite work out. Volunteered for submarine service. There's only a few places you can be on a submarine in the U.S. Navy, and one of those is Pearl Harbor. So I ended up getting stationed in Pearl Harbor because the funny thing is about Pearl Harbor is a lot of guys don't want to get stationed there. A lot of guys, if you have a family and you have 4 people in your family and you got to go see mom and dad for the holidays, that's not going to happen because you're not going to front the money for the entire family 10, 11 times a year on whatever rank you may be to go home. So that's just that's not a always the best option. Well, I end up in Hawaii. I end up on my first ship, and just honestly, every single Navy movie I've ever seen in my entire life, when the guy gets to the ship, he thinks he's hot stuff, and they put him in the kitchen and he's peeling potatoes. Yep, that's what happened. I get there, I'm not qualified. I'm peeling potatoes and cutting up cake, serving up Navy cake, doing my thing as a new useless body on board because I wasn't qualified anything, or nub for short. Some of you guys might know what that is. If you do, I'm sorry. It's not my fault. So I get there. I'm a nub. I'm in the galley. I'm cutting up Navy cake. I'm eating a little Navy cake. Cutting up Navy cake. I'm eating a little Navy cake. Cutting up, eating, cutting up, eating, cutting up, eating. Guess what? Got big. Got hefty. Filled out my dungarees. It was kind of bad. Okay, so got fat. But in high school, I wrestled and I boxed in high school. Wasn't very good, but I did it. And I knew that if I got into the right type of gym, I could sweat the weight off, get myself back to normal. Well, one of my buddies on board clues me in that there's these things that are happening called, I think, what was the name of it? I think it was, you guys gotta excuse me because, like, honestly, when I started, it was like 98, 99. So it's like a completely different era of mixed martial arts. It was like full contact fighting, or like no holds barred. These are the names that it was called back then, right? So there's a gym where there's some really, really good guys at, right? But there's these fights that are happening, and that's the old school Blaisdell Arena fights. First fights I ever fought in, not the first, but some of the very first fights I fought in. So I fought, right? So we went to the show. I checked everything. I was like, man, that looks awesome. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna get down with this? Because this looks like I could get skinnier doing this. So sure enough, I find my way to the gym in Halava Heights, which at the time was like super close to like Pearl Harbor, like easy to get to, especially if you're like a E3, E2, not making no money, living on base, like easy to get to. So that's what happened. I found my way over to Halava Heights, and at the time it was Egan Inouye, and it was Grappling Unlimited, and that's literally, like, I look back on those years, it's like, man, there were a lot of just, like, literally, like, out of the 50 people, that may have been members at one time there in that small, maybe 900 square foot gym, like, there might have been like 30 guys that fought professionally. There may have been like at least 10 guys that some way, shape, or form that touched those mats became some form of MMA champ. So, and either a local promotion or found their way into, like major promotions out of that gym. Guys like Barrett Yoshida, Wesley Cabbage Carrera, Nico Vitale, man, so many guys, just so many guys that were there. Colo Coca, and just day in, day out, we're grinding away. Eddie Yagan, so that was what transpired. I started training there, and bit by bit got a little better. I did a lot of it's like my first few fights were like B-class Shudo. Like, you say Shudo and like all of a sudden people don't even know what's going on with that nowadays, but back in the day, if you were that close to Japan, all the dope MMA stuff was happening in Japan. So you wanted to find the coolest stuff that was coming out of Japan. Like, you hear it all the time, like guys talk about they talk about like waiting at these like bootleg VHS stores, and like legit, I would wait at a bootleg VHS store for a knockoff copy of something that got taped off of Japanese television and see the latest fights. But that was kind of like the culture at the time. So there was that. so we went. So I went there, but fighting B class judo, I don't know if you know, is there's 2 5-minute rounds, which is rough. So if you win the first round and you lose the second round, then guess what? You're going the distance and it's a draw. And in the beginning, when you're fighting for, $200 to $400, it can kind of suck if you walk home with $200 because you couldn't finish it. So out of necessity, it's like, man, if I learn more submissions, then I could finish more fights, and finishing more fights equals more dollars in my pocket. So I started taking up jiu-jitsu, and wasn't really thinking of it as a competitive outlet, but was more of, just learning it. And guess what? I'm learning how to do submissions, and guess what? Some of my fights are ending with me winning by submission, and that's kind of cool. But then, just like with most people that fight, what ends up happening is you get your arm twisted or something, or you dislocate something, or you catch a staph or whatever, and you end up off the mat for a little bit, and then so you got to recalibrate. You got to think about things a little bit, and you go back to the drawing board. That's the funny thing about jiu-jitsu is like you got to keep going back to the drawing board. And what happened with me, I would have these little like bumps in the road, so MMA might be out of the picture for a little bit. So I would dive deeper and deeper, use time, if I could still get on the mat, and dive deeper and deeper into technique. And then at the time, there's guys like, between Egan Inoue and Barrett Yoshida, like ripping it up, going to Abu Dhabi like almost every other year, just tearing it up out there. Like you start asking the questions, and that's kind of like my whole thing is you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. Like, man, these dudes are doing it. Like, how can I do it? Like, what's he doing? Like, how's this working? How's that working? And the wheels start turning, and then you start finding out these solutions to things. So yeah, so like being around these guys in this basically like awesome incubator, I started learning jiu-jitsu, and then before I knew it, I was doing a little jiu-jitsu. I was practicing, I was learning a little bit more, I was competing a little bit in jiu-jitsu, and I started using jiu-jitsu to get ready for fights, like as like mini ramp ups for the big ramp up for the MMA fight. And then slowly, like, infatuation turned into obsession, and before I knew it, I was legit only just doing jiu-jitsu. So, long story short, I do jiu-jitsu. I am a 2nd degree black belt underneath Barrett Yoshida. As far as martial arts, I've had a long history in competing in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I've competed in sambo. I've competed in any form of grappling, gi, no gi. I always joke around like, man, if they had a competition where you got bunny ears and you could use your bunny ears to choke someone, I'm pretty sure I would find my way into that competition and then use that to my advantage. But yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. I'm a jiu-jitsu MMA dude with a cool, I guess you might say it's kind of a cool little history on how I got to be me. And I'm living in this middle of this nexus of art and jiu-jitsu. And I think what I really want to do in the direction that I want to go in with this podcast is, through jiu-jitsu, I've met a lot of people, and I've met guys that are not only really, really good jiu-jitsu practitioners, but also really, really good artists and really, really good designers and people that are immersed in the art culture, as well as those that are high performers of high performers in the realm of martial arts as well, So honestly, like, I just like to talk to people and figure out how that whole thing works out, how it works out for them, how they get to express their art, whether it be a physical form such as dance, or whether it be like something like, like painting, or whether it be poetry, or whether it be rap, or what that is, like that connection of that art and how that influences and informs what they're doing in the world of martial arts, be it mixed martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, whatever martial art it is that seems to kind of tickle their fancy, if you will. So I hope that I can be of service to you, providing you a service of just like maybe my take on things, and maybe a few other people's take on things out there. Hopefully we can put together something fun and entertaining that you guys like and enjoy and care to listen to, care to download, maybe care to be a part of. So I guess in a nutshell, that would be our first podcast. Tune into my next episode. My next episode, I'm going to have a guy who you may or may not know, but this is a guy who's actually really, really special to me. His name's Otto. He's one of the guys that I first started training with when I moved here to San Diego, and he's a guy who has dual citizenship in art and martial arts, such as myself. He runs a very, very cool studio known as FX Dojo, right? And he just took the dojo concept of like a jiu-jitsu school or studio that is a place that's like wholly set aside for learning and the rigors of learning. And he teaches FX. He teaches media design. He teaches graphic design. He teaches 3D animation, at a school here. And he's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. And he's just like a lot of us. He's been around a little bit, and he's been in it. He's been around it. He's smelled it. I think technically he's a professional boxer. Cool, super cool dude. And hopefully you guys find him as super cool and fun as I do. So we'll just go ahead and say thanks for tuning in. Oh yeah, sponsors. Sponsors. This is the space where we would insert sponsors, I guess. I guess it goes without saying that first I'd like to thank the Arena MMA, because that's currently my jiu-jitsu home of Barrett Yoshida, aka Barrett Submissions. He's like the workhorse of jiu-jitsu. I don't know anybody in his graduating class that is still out there smashing it, squeezing it, and choking it like Barrett is. That sounds pretty whack, but hey, he was probably gonna make fun of me for saying that, but it just came to me. Okay, bear with me, Captain Quotable. Yeah, so giving a shout out to the Arena. If you're in San Diego, it's probably one of the best places that you can go train. It's a huge facility, tons of knowledgeable guys that only care about getting you better. It's a place of knowledge. It's not necessarily a place of cultivation. So if you're kind of already doing your thing, you can go there too. You'll have fun, but they're gonna teach you some things, and it's gonna be fun. So, yes, if you're in the San Diego area, give those guys a check out. Other sponsors. If you need a gi, give a shout out to my gi sponsor. That's right. If you don't know what a gi is, keep listening to this podcast and you'll find out what a gi is. My gi sponsor, Contract Killer, CK Fight Life. good stuff. Guys are here in America. Awesome threads. Good people. And they are heavy into the NABJJF scene. Okay, so those guys are working. You know, one of the main sponsors for NABJJF, SJJF tournaments. They work alongside those guys, and it's kind of interesting because I like, you know, I try not to favor any specific federations, but I'd like the sentiment that those guys are trying to make jiu-jitsu an Olympic sport. So it's probably one of my favorite sponsors. And they also do paintball stuff too for you savages out there that like, you know, shooting paint at each other. So that's the thing, right? So shout out to the arena, shout out to Contract Killer, and that's pretty much gonna be it, guys. Tune in next time, and I hope you enjoyed this one. 2 fingers.